I am a second-generation rich kid. He discovered that he had a crush on David, a top student in the medical department. He pressed my head into the sink, grabbed my hair and said, "You bastard. Did you think I didn't notice? Stealing my panties feels good, doesn't it? Whoever stole his underwear should give it back to him right now." 1. After being forced to drink a few sips of tap water, David finally let me go, wiped his hands and left in disgust. He threw me into the corner like a bag of garbage, and I kept coughing. The way he pressed me in the pool, this guy really wanted me to die. In fact, he was right in saying one thing. I am a gay. But his second sentence was wrong, because I didn't steal his underwear. I am rich and I can buy any brand of underwear. No matter how much I like him, I wouldn't be so perverted as to steal his original underwear. But none of this matters. The important thing is that he knew that I had a crush on him. My throat was sore from choking on the water. I rubbed my trembling body and stumbled towards the dormitory. Fortunately, there are not many students here. You can't see how miserable I am now. In fact, David suddenly came to the department to see me at noon today. I was very happy, but I tried hard to suppress my excitement. Although his expression was dull, his tone was gentle and polite, and he asked me to meet him in the comprehensive building. At the agreed time, he asked me to go to the men's restroom, saying that he wanted to tell me a secret that could not be told. Little did I know that as soon as I stepped into the men's restroom, he pushed me against the sink and forced me to drink tap water. I didn't even know how he had discovered such a secret crush of mine. In fact, I can understand his behavior just now. After all, who would like to be stared at by the same sex? Originally, he and I had no connection at all. The strange thing is that a month ago I went to a restaurant. David is the waiter in the restaurant. He has broad shoulders and long legs, with sharp and distinct facial features, a cool temperament, and a mechanical smile that is neither smiling nor laughing. One glance ruined my life. In just a second, I was completely subdued by his suit pants. I secretly used my own pocket money to find a private investigator. It took only 1 week to investigate David thoroughly. Describe it in one sentence. Parents who died early, a frail and sickly sister, a poor and broken boy living in a bare house. He did not give up on himself. With the help of the government, he was admitted to a good university and became an outstanding medical student. After much hardship, I transferred here. It's only been a short time. He knew that I had a crush on him. It must be that my love that could not overflow was felt by him. When I arrived at the dormitory, my roommates were a little shocked when they saw that my upper body was submerged in water. He hurriedly took a towel and handed it to me. I wiped it in silence. This dormitory originally housed 4 people, but it became vacant some time ago when 2 students rented a house outside. I grinned and said, "Thank you, John." While wiping the water off my head, I was thinking about how to pursue David. He must have not appreciated my kindness. That's why he treated me like this, too. So the next day, I went to see David. He ate his meal in silence in the noisy cafeteria, and all the bustle around him seemed out of tune with him. I leaned over. A large bowl of white rice, a small portion of cabbage, and some pickled vegetables he brought with him. "Here, for you." I pushed the big bowl full of meat dishes to him. David didn't even look at me, but he ate rice faster. "What do you mean? Just take it if I give it to you." He doesn't want to eat every day. He's always so stingy. Poor guy, he's so shameless. But he still has a lot of backbone. In fact, I know that I have a problem, which is that I have a sharp tongue. But I really don't mean any harm. I just tend to do this when I'm anxious. As soon as I said it, I regretted it. David stopped eating, raised his head and gave me a sinister smile. This is even more terrifying than pushing me into the pool yesterday. He smiled like this the last time a muscular man tried to blackmail him outside school. Then they beat the strong man like a dead dog and threw him into the sewer. He looks like a nobleman, but his actions are more terrifying than those of gangsters. I was so scared that my skin tightened and I swallowed fearfully. He stood up and approached me, holding the back of my neck with one hand. The voice was very low, so that only the 2 of them could hear it. "So bad." My face quickly became hot and I stammered as I tried to retort. His tone suddenly became calm again, with a certain malice. If you feel itchy, I can castrate you. It would be nice to be the last eunuch of this century. I told you this guy is really cruel. After hearing this, I was so scared that I ran away crawling. Of course, before running away, he poured all the meat dishes into his rice bowl. I heard that studying medicine is very tiring and it won't work if you don't get enough nutrition. This operation can be said to have ended in failure before success. Although I failed, I also learned some lessons. I spent the whole afternoon buying a bunch of underwear at a luxury store outside the school. All for David. I didn't catch the thief who stole his underwear. But I bought so many underwear, so logically, they should be worth the one he lost. So I really had no idea he would be so angry when I handed him the underwear. He was so angry that his face turned red and his neck became thick, but he managed to suppress it. Paul, stop bothering me. I'm straight. Anyway, I can understand him. I don't want to turn normal men into gays, so I choose to watch from afar. 3. But I didn't expect that David would come to me himself not long after. John looked at David and pulled Scott out of the dormitory. He had also heard that Paul was scolded by David, a talented medical student. Although the reason is unknown, now that David has taken the initiative to come to their house, it might be a good time for them to resolve their past grievances. I might as well take Scott out and give them some time to deal with it. David raised an eyebrow when he saw John consciously go out and close the door. He locked the door and sat on the stool leisurely. Is your dormitory a gay den? Don't talk nonsense. I am very happy about David's arrival, but this guy never stops talking until he makes shocking remarks. Oh, he nodded, then hooked his finger at me with a look that was both arrogant and bewitching. After struggling for a long time, I stammered, I really didn't steal your underwear. David hesitated for a long time before he said, Paul, did you pay for my sister's surgery? What? My secret plan to hire a private detective was exposed by him so quickly? Are you kidding me? I didn't give you $800,000 for the surgery. David's eyes swept over my nervous face and his expression became solemn. I don't think I told you that my sister's surgery cost exactly $800,000. It's over. I've exposed myself. He came closer to me and said, What an idiot you are. You are the fool. Even if I am a fool, I must be a kind-hearted fool. Although $800,000 is not a lot, it is almost all my pocket money. I'll give it back to you. Now do you need me to do anything? What to do? This sentence is really touching. I stared at his abdominal muscles, hidden under his clothes with burning eyes. It would be enough for me to get close to him just once. Since I was a child, people have described me as a boiled chicken. No matter how much I practice, I am always weak. His belly was also white and soft, showing no masculinity at all. I would be satisfied if I could hug the man I secretly love once and feel his strong abdominal muscles. David's expression froze, his pupils showing a hint of anger. Just when I thought he was going to get angry again, he walked towards me. He spoke word by word, his hot breath falling on my ears, and said in a hoarse voice, Take off your clothes and lie down on the bed. Ah, does hugging require taking off clothes? I lowered my head and looked at my clothes, only to see that the t-shirt with Pikachu printed on it was stained with some watermelon juice. David is a medical student, maybe he has mysophobia. I took off my shirt as he said, and the next second, a warm body pressed down on me without any defense. It smells like disinfectant. His voice was hoarse and a little shaky. This is my first time too. Just bear with the pain. You stupid idiot. I cried and huddled in the corner, covering my butt, glaring at the culprit with resentment. David also pressed his temples with a headache. His brows furrowed, and his outstanding facial features were full of depression. You just want a hug? Why are you dragging your feet and not saying it out loud? Damn it, who was the one being fried? It's obviously me. I stopped you midway. Why did you continue? After a long while, David finally sighed. The man who can stop at this time is definitely not good enough. Oh, the implication is that he is very good. But what about my butt? Who's responsible for my butt? David had his back to me, his upper body naked, and the bloodstains on his back proved how fierce the battle was. I accidentally recalled the scene just now. I had an embarrassed face and felt like dying. David sighed, moved closer to me, held me in his arms, and patted my head soothingly. "Don't you like me? From today on, I am your boyfriend." After hearing this, the pain in my butt seemed to ease a little. I poked my head out of his arms. "Then I want to hug you every day." "Can?" My pupils dilated with excitement. "Then eat with me every day. As long as I have time." I rubbed my face happily. "I want a pair of your underwear." David gritted his teeth. "You still say you didn't steal my underwear? I feel like I'm at a loss because I don't have it. You even scolded me because of the underwear." David was silent. It feels a bit like shooting oneself in the foot. Finally, he nodded in frustration. "I feel good." Ignoring the pain in my butt, I dove headfirst into his firm abdominal muscles. Then touch it repeatedly 360 degrees. The veins on David's forehead seemed to be throbbing slightly, and his face was flushed. "Don't touch me like that." "Why?" I swallowed the rest of the words because I saw little David starting to get excited. My butt was still hurting, so I quickly pulled away from him. As for David, he went straight into the bathroom and took a few cold showers before coming out. "Paul, I'm going back now." I looked at him eagerly. As if remembering something, he turned around and said, "Let's have lunch together tomorrow." It turned out that the 800,000 was well spent. The man who was once out of my reach became my boyfriend after just a few days. It was just like a dream, except my butt was a bit hurt. 5. Out of my desire for abdominal muscles, I would clock in at the medical department every day. I was a frequent visitor to begin with, and with the previous giving away underwear incident, over time the people around David became more familiar with me. "Paul, are you looking for David again? He's still in the lab. You have to wait a moment." I nodded, put the big bag of snacks in my hand on the table, and only took out the strawberry milk. David loves sweets, especially strawberry milk. This is the result of my careful observation. "Share the rest among you." The other person's eyes lit up, and he said a few words of thank you and took the snacks without hesitation. I was staring at the door of the laboratory with strawberry milk in my hand, bored. It was not until more than 10 minutes later that the door finally opened. Today he is still wearing a white coat, with transparent goggles on his handsome face, looking very abstinent. But today, a girl suddenly appeared next to me. She is a very beautiful girl whom I have never seen before. The two people were so engrossed in their conversation that they completely forgot about the people around them. Maybe it's because I'm too greedy, so the person who ate my snacks gave me an appropriate reminder. David then noticed me, his eyes fell on me and his eyebrows raised. He walked up to me and said in a joking tone, "Paul, you are always on time." I was about to speak when I was interrupted. "David, is this the Paul you mentioned before?" The beautiful woman walked up to David. They were very close to each other, and their tone was familiar. I feel so uncomfortable. For no reason, I felt annoyed. David looked at me with amusement, wondering what bad idea he was up to. "Hello, Paul. I'm David's girlfriend, Emma." "Girlfriend?" My eyes widened in shock. My legs went weak, and my whole body felt like it was falling into an icy cave. David, on the other hand, said calmly, "Okay, Emma, stop joking. I'm going to eat." I said quietly. It was obvious that the two people on the opposite side completely ignored me. Emma stuck out her tongue, placing a hand casually on him. "I'm not kidding. Everyone knows that I changed my major because of you. It's just that you haven't agreed yet. But that doesn't mean you won't agree in the future." Hateful. I said I want to eat. Now, not only the two of them, but all the others who were chewing snacks turned their eyes over here. "Don't you see what kind of person you are now? You still have the nerve to flirt with women." It's over, my bad mouth starts again. As expected, David's face darkened instantly as soon as these words came out, and Emma was also stunned. He said, "I'm leaving," first with a fake smile, then grabbed the back of my collar and dragged me out. Drag him to a utility room and lock the door. He pinched the back of my neck and made me face him. His eyes were very deep and there was a cold smile on the corner of his mouth. Repeat what you just said. Just say it. I gave you 800,000, took you out for dinner every day, and bought you underwear. In ancient times, people would pledge their love to someone, and you've already agreed to be my boyfriend. You are still so fickle and flirting with other girls. My Chung gang is not like that. David was confused after hearing this, but seeing my eyes welling up in tears, he didn't say anything in the end. He just pinched the soft flesh on my cheek and said in a nasty tone, "Then you are really my savior, my benefactor. Please take off your clothes now, and I will give you my body, okay?" I was so scared that I covered my butt. I just want to stick to my abs. Why is this guy so perverted that he always wants my butt? In the end, I was so exhausted that my legs were weak and my eyes were lifeless as he helped me out of the storage room. "Oh, by the way, who is the Chung gang you were talking about?" I said weakly. "It's a dog I raise at home. David." 6. Maybe it's because I've made good use of the identity of my savior. David has come to me on his own initiative in recent days. "Student Lou is here again. Please wait a moment." I was coming out of the bathroom after taking a shower when I heard John's voice at the door. "It's so hot in this summer. John, can you lend me your hair dryer?" The water on my head was almost blurring my eyes. A hair dryer touched my arm and I took it and started using it. He wiped the water from his eyelids and turned around. "Oh my God, David, isn't it him?" David said, then grabbed a sports vest and forcefully put it on me. "What are you doing? I'm hot. Just bear with it. Who told you to be shirtless?" I was speechless. "This is the dormitory. I'm not taking it off outside." Unexpectedly, he said in a serious tone, "It is immoral." "Fuck you, that's immoral. But this guy is really amazing. In 39-degree weather, there is not a drop of sweat on his face. Could it be that this thing is actually a refrigerator?" I moved closer suspiciously and touched his strong pectoral muscles. David used both hands to stop me from unbuttoning my clothes. "Sex in broad daylight? Damn, what the hell is this guy talking about?" I looked around the dormitory in fear. "No need to look. Your two roommates went out to eat. I locked your dormitory door. I just wonder why you're not sweating. When you are calm, you will feel cooler." "Tisach, you're starting to act pretentiously again. Hurry up and dry your hair. I'll take you to dinner later." But man proposes, God disposes. When I went to the restaurant, I happened to meet other medical students in David's group. The sweet world of the two of them instantly turned into a bustling world of a group of people. I watched them chatting about academic things that I couldn't understand. Since I was a poor student, I just ate my food quietly. Suddenly, a few shrimps and cashews were placed in the bowl. I stared at David blankly. He was still chatting about medical expertise with those people, but his hands would occasionally pick up food for me. My favorite is still shrimp cashew. I tugged at his sleeve. Want some dessert?" Before I could answer, he picked up 3 pieces with chopsticks and put them on the plate in front of me. "Eat it. I ordered it especially for you." There were only 4 pieces on the plate. The person opposite put down his chopsticks awkwardly. Damn. Even though it's a little embarrassing, I feel so sweet inside. "But," I whispered in his ear, "I just want to pee." A glare was thrown at me. Shit. I take back what I said. I feel so happy inside. This guy is obviously scary. 7. After coming out of the men's restroom, I felt refreshed. Only, I looked at the woman blocking my way in confusion. Unlike the gentle look she showed the last time, this time she seemed somewhat hostile. "Let's talk." In the hotel box, Emma blinked her beautiful eyes and said, "Paul, I'm too lazy to speak the official language. Can you please leave David?" I was stunned and opened my mouth, but no word came out, because Emma's next words were like a cannonball, exploding into my fragile little heart. "You are gay, right? But not David, I know your deal. 800,000. Am I right? That was David's sister's life-saving money. After all, you just got a head start on me." The sound of her lipstick-coated lips moving together made my head buzz. "David is very talented. Do you know how many times he has refused opportunities for his mentor to study abroad? 3 times. She walked up to me in her high heels and said, "If you miss this opportunity, it will be very difficult to move up in the future. I know you like David very much, but you should also take a look at our country's views on homosexuality. Even if David makes a name for himself through his own efforts, what if your relationship is exposed? Public opinion can ruin a person. Do you really want him to become a pariah in the future? So please let David go. I can pay you back the 800,000 on his behalf." No! I pursed my lips and said, "I didn't force him to spend 800,000 yuan. Then are you sure David didn't agree to be with you just for the 800,000 yuan?" Silence. Seeing that I was unable to defend myself, Emma turned around and left with a swaying look as if she had won a battle. I left the hotel in a daze, walking forward aimlessly. The cell phone rang, but I didn't answer. It's like a death warrant and it keeps ringing if I don't answer. Damn that blind guy. When I saw the caller, the engine was turned off. "Hello? Paul, did you pull your pants pocket? Do you want me to bring you a diaper?" This insidious man. However, contrary to my usual practice, I did not refute. As if he had sensed something was wrong, he dropped his teasing tone. "Are you still in the bathroom?" "Not here." "Where?" I looked around. "I don't know. Is there any big building nearby?" I stared at the huge building in front of me, with the 5 characters of Rich Foot Bathing City printed on it in brilliant gold and jade, and said dejectedly, "Wealthy Foot Bathing City." The other party was startled, and there seemed to be a sound of grinding teeth. "You're really good." Beep, beep. There was a busy tone on the other end of the line. Neuropathy. I continue to be emo. On the streets in summer, the wind blowing towards you is full of restlessness. I kind of regretted leaving the restaurant, but I did nothing wrong. But I just feel that I can't fit into their circle, no matter how much effort I put in. Just to have a reason to visit him every day, I would bring various snacks and fruits to share with his companions. I brainwashed myself into thinking that I was very familiar with them, so I was assigned to their side. But in fact, the distance between me and them is not just as superficial as it seems on the surface. Especially since Emma bluntly pointed out the fact that I was unwilling to admit. If it weren't for these 800,000, suck. I don't want to pay attention to it and continue to sink into my sad autumn. As the tsk tisk tisk sound approached, I turned back angrily. "David, you are crazy." David, who had been making the sound of teasing a puppy, finally shut up. It's a waste of his noble and handsome face. He looks like a gangster. Paul is quite interesting. He squatted on the road in the hot summer and smelled the exhaust fumes from cars. I looked at him with wide eyes. "I am too weak to go out and steam in a natural sauna." David pinched the soft flesh on my waist in an ambiguous way and said, "If you have kidney deficiency, just do it more often and it will be fine. You have kidney deficiency, your whole family has kidney deficiency." I slapped his hand away and said, "We are outside now. Don't touch me. If someone sees you, your reputation as a talented medical student will be ruined." "Why, are you starting to dislike me now?" I don't know what to say to him, so I'd better keep silent. David took a step forward with his long legs, and his tall and straight body stood in front of me. "What happened?" I shook my head. If I told Emma what I said now, it would sound like I was jealous of a woman. I noticed from the corner of my eye that he was getting closer and closer to me, so I turned away from him and quickened my pace. My arm was pulled violently, and I lost my balance and fell into the arms of the person behind me. "Paul, do you know what you look like right now?" "What?" The jealous young wife looked aggrieved. He pinched my cheek and said, "Tell me, who offended you again?" I looked at his shining pupils and couldn't help asking, "David, are you with me because of the 800,000? The smile on his face faded. He let go of me and shrugged indifferently. "What else?" Although I knew the result, my chest still felt tight. It was like someone was smashing it with a sledgehammer and yelling, 80, 80. It's painful, stuffy, and noisy. I seemed to have lost this battle. Complete defeat. 9. I wasn't brave enough to break up with David directly. because I bought this relationship with my own money. I could only transfer the remaining pocket money, about 100,000 yuan, to a bank card. He also maliciously asked a private detective to anonymously give the bank card to David's sister, who was still in the hospital. Then, bearing the stigma of being a prodigal son and being beaten in the name of his father, he dropped out of school. Yes, I dropped out of school again. This time, my father directly exiled me abroad. I only know 26 letters of the alphabet, and I am studying the obscure English language while missing the delicious food of China from across the ocean. And David's strong abdominal muscles and handsome face. Paul, please take me back with you when you return home. I can't live without you. My roommate Jason put his head on my shoulder with a lustful look on his face. The person who was cooking stirred the food twice and shook his shoulders in an attempt to shake him off. Obviously, it failed. There is really not much delicious food in Paris, so I have to cook for myself. As my roommate, I symbolically gave Jason some food I made. Not only did the other party accept it happily, he even depended on me. As soon as it's time for dinner, he will come on time. But today is my last day in Paris. As the Spring Festival is approaching, I plan to go home for the new year. Jason's parents were traveling, so he had to stay alone in the apartment whether he went home or not. So he pestered me for several days, hoping to go back with me to celebrate the new year. When he turned around, he was met with a pair of emerald green eyes. Jason was of Chinese and French descent. He has a top-notch face with Western bone structure and Eastern skin. Add to that her height of 194 centimeters, and it's amazing. The rate of people turning their heads to look at her is probably 2,000%. It's just a little bit worse than David. Paul, is it really not possible? I have always been embarrassed to refuse others, especially after I have refused many times. I had no choice but to nod. The other person's eyes flashed with surprise and he hugged me. Paul, I knew you were soft-hearted. When I sat with Jason for more than 10 hours, finally stepping into my homeland after more than half a year, I actually felt tears welling up in my eyes. My favorites are pork elbow, shrimp and cashews, fish in oil. Here I come. After returning home, Jason's parents welcomed him very much. My mom even pulled me aside and whispered to me if he was my boyfriend. I just rolled my eyes. Mom, don't talk nonsense. He doesn't even know I'm gay. My mother was dumbfounded. I thought this was your boyfriend, isn't it? He's just my roommate, what boyfriend? In an instant, my mother's face drooped and she kept muttering, if it weren't for my boyfriend, I would be so excited. How old are you? And other similar words. Turns out that even if you are gay, you cannot escape being urged to get married. After the reunion dinner, I received a call from John. In fact, I only stayed at David's university for half a year, but I gained a lot. Besides David, I also made a lot of friends. Even after I left that place and cut off all contact with that place, I still secretly wrote down John's phone number. As soon as I landed, I sent a message to John to wish him a happy new year. As for David, I cut him off completely. As soon as the call was connected, John's voice came into my ears from the other end of the line. Paul, I thought you were dead. I haven't heard from you for half a year. How dare I die if you're not dead? After a few insults, John's tone suddenly became serious. What happened between you and David? I was stunned. It feels like it's been a long time since I heard this name from someone else. After a moment of silence, I said, nothing happened. Then he was like his wife had died, coming to our dormitory every day with pink eye. I told him 800 times that you went abroad to study, but he didn't believe me. I don't know what happened, but my chest started to feel stuffy again. What happened next? After that, he came for a month and then stopped. I don't know what happened to him afterwards, but he just told me to let him know if there's any news about you. I unconsciously held the phone tightly. You didn't tell him? Oh, how can that be possible? I don't even know what happened between you two. By the way, it's rare for you to come back, come out and get together. You can't miss the class reunion. I looked at the time, it's still early. Sure, what time? See you at 7 p.m. I'll send you the address of the hotel. 10. After the time came, I arrived at the destination as scheduled. accompanied by Jason, who was curious about everything. "Paul, your country is awesome. You're not talking nonsense." He blinked. Although his mother was Chinese and could speak Chinese, she was not very proficient in it. For him, he could only express the simple and obvious meaning. "This guy has been asking me a million questions since he came to China. He has asked me many questions since I got off the plane." I adjusted my scarf nonchalantly and exhaled a breath of mist. "Your wife?" "No, Paul, I'm your wife." When I entered the box, I found that besides John and Scott, there were two other people I didn't know. A man wearing gold-rimmed glasses looks gentle and polite, and his facial features are a little too delicate. The other one had slightly curly hair and wheat-colored skin. He was chatting with his face turned sideways, and occasionally when he smiled, his little canine teeth appeared. "Finally, you're here. I thought you weren't coming." The air conditioner was on in the room, so I took off my coat and scarf. "John asked me to come, so I dared not disobey." John patted my shoulder and pointed at the two men. "Let me introduce my two roommates who moved out, Ryan and Kevin. This is my former roommate Paul, who is studying in France. This is," I pulled Jason down, "my roommate Jason, who is abroad." The relationships between this roommate and that roommate are quite complicated. It makes me dizzy. But to sum it up in one sentence, they are all pure roommate relationships. The curly-haired boy Ryan on the opposite side brightened up his eyes, and then he came over to me from beside Kevin. "Dude, how long have you been abroad?" "Just half a year." "Is there anything delicious or fun over there?" He scratched his head and said a little embarrassedly, "I plan to go there to play in a while. How should I put it, I seldom go out at all. I can't speak English fluently and I have a poor sense of direction, so basically, apart from going to school, I go home to study recipes." I smiled sheepishly, then suddenly remembered something and pulled Jason over. "Ask him, he's Chinese-French." Jason smiled back and then started communicating with Kevin. The two seemed to be having a good chat, but suddenly they looked towards Ryan and me. The Chinese language that was originally spoken also began to turn into French. "What the hell, you're speaking French now?" Ryan muttered. I nodded in affirmation. This is a crushing defeat for poor students. However, poor students also have their own interests, such as eating. How touching it is to eat the delicious food from your hometown. Bang! The door was kicked open. I was so scared that I nearly choked to death. I dropped my chopsticks with a bang. What a psychopath! But this anger disappeared immediately after seeing the person coming. David was seen with a violent look on his face, panting as if he had come from far away. The windbreaker cut through the air like a sharp blade, and the room that was originally well heated suddenly became extremely cool. I was so cold that I shivered involuntarily. His eyes quickly scanned the area and locked onto me. He walked straight towards me. 11. David's face looked frighteningly ferocious. I originally wanted to say, "Hello, how are you?" to show that my trip abroad was not in vain. But when I saw his expression, I was so scared that my pants almost fell off. This expression only appeared when I gave him underwear to beat me. It's just that it looks even scarier now than it did then. He grabbed my arm like an ice sculpture and pulled me out without saying a word. The others who were originally stunned on the spot also seemed to come to their senses and spoke out to stop it. Jason stood directly between him and me. "Let Paul go." "Paul?" David gritted his teeth and repeated, "What a bullshit call. Don't insult my name when you quarrel." "Let me go, you're hurting him." David clenched his other fist until it cracked. He looked at the people around him and sneered. "I don't want to ruin this place. Paul, follow me." I pursed my lips, afraid of what he would do, and shook my head very lightly. Although the amplitude was very subtle, David was keenly aware of it. He gritted his teeth and loosened his grip. With a bang, David slammed the door hard, and the intense pain made his face distorted. At the same time, it also gave me a chill inside. The crumbling door showed his immense anger. It seemed that this door could not be used anymore. He used his good hand to gather up the gaping gap in his shirt. Then he strode forward without looking back, with a sad and resolute look. "Paul, why are you crying?" Jason hurriedly pulled out a piece of paper and handed it to me, Did he hurt you? Did I cry? He casually wiped his face with one hand full of tears. Excuse me, everyone. I have to go out for a while. I hurriedly grabbed my coat and scarf and rushed out. No, not now. David couldn't be left alone, because his back looks so lonely. 12. David was out for only a few minutes, and I didn't see a single hair on his head. This hotel was booked by John, and it is a very romantic place. There are not many buildings around, only an artificial river not far away. Couples usually take a walk there after dinner. Having made up my mind, I ran towards the river, trying to find that familiar figure. After running about a few hundred meters, I saw the man sitting by the river. He sat dejectedly on the bench, opening a can of beer with one hand, his injured hand hanging by his side. I tiptoed over and sat next to him. He paused, then stood up and was about to leave. I grabbed his shirt and said, "It's me. Why, you want to see me being played around by you? Talk, Paul, it's fun, isn't it?" He turned around and said something angrily, but immediately put the beer in his hand on the ground. "Why are you crying? Who bullied you?" I blinked my sore eyes and said sullenly, "David." "What?" It's rare to see him looking confused. I stretched out my finger and poked his chest muscle. "It's you who bullied me." He laughed in anger and held my fingers with his backhand. "You are really good at making the first move." Grinding his teeth, he continued, "It's obviously you who's been horny to me like a pervert all day." He stole my underwear for no reason and then gave me underwear as a gift, trying to play hard to get. Finally, I was tempted. But you, after using me, patted my butt and left. Who is bullying whom? I looked at the man in front of me who was turning the tables in shock. However, I also accurately picked out 2 words he said. "Move, move." Incredibly, he asked again, "You like me? Laugh if you want to. You are the modern Chen Shimmy." Being labeled as Chen Shimmy, I didn't bother to refute. "But I once asked you if you were with me because of the 800,000 yuan. You said then, what if it weren't so?" He narrowed his eyes slightly with an ambiguous look. "Isn't this the truth? You spent 800,000 to support me, and on the first day you asked me to sell myself to you. Damn it, no way. Didn't I say at the time that I just wanted to stick to my abs?" He sighed. "I was just saying that casually. After all, he is your boyfriend. Why do you care about that?" "No, the same." I let out a bitter smile. Because from the beginning, our love was not on an equal footing. In my case, I was the one who was working hard the whole time. I just felt that you were forced to give in because of my $800,000. "But I really like you." There was a hint of a crack in his expression, and then he pulled me into his arms helplessly. "Paul, it's my fault. I'm just not used to having people around me yet. I've always been alone." Burying my face in his strong chest muscles and smelling the familiar body scent, I finally found a sense of reality. "I wasn't like this before." He smiled as if reminiscing about the past. "I have a good family, my parents and my lovely sister. In just one night, I lost all my happiness, and everything in my family was auctioned off to repay other people. At that time, my relatives avoided me as much as possible, fearing that I would be involved in something. My sister also fell ill not long after that. At first, I never took money seriously, and this family didn't need me to worry about it. But later, I found out that money is the life of the poor, so I worked day and night. My life was already bad, and I met a fool who didn't know the seriousness of the matter and blatantly spied on me with his eyes. Then, something even worse happened. My sister needed surgery, and it would cost 800,000 to save her life. But you, an idiot, secretly used all your pocket money to pay for the surgery while I wasn't paying attention. I have nothing, but I have secretly saved 20,000 yuan. I thought this idiot was really after a physical relationship, but I found that he seemed to be treating me well unconditionally and tried his best to save up the most precious things for me. I think I'm not qualified for treating my sponsor so badly, and I'm going to be kicked out sooner or later. Just thinking like this, I got more beautiful things. During that time, I kept doubting myself, wondering if it was because of the $800,000 life-saving money or something else that made me waver. I just realized now that you have been here for a long time. He gently pushed me away and pointed to his heart. Although David didn't say, "I love you," explicitly, the overflowing love was so overwhelming that it seemed to annihilate me. Just when I was feeling touched and happy, he opened his lips and said, "I have already received the balance of 100,000. If you are supporting me, then support me till the end. If you give up halfway, I will beat you up." This guy who has a hard mouth but a soft heart, I want to bite him on the lips. You'd better shut up. I have a sharp tongue and you can't speak either. Oh, take these. I stared at the 1 million transfer record on my phone. 13. How do you have so much money? He ruffled my hair and said, "Of course it's your man who earns the money. In addition to medical skills, I'm also good at developing software. But all I can give you is 900,000, right? How can the interest in half a year be more than 100,000? 800,000 is Yu's life-saving money, and 100,000 is the cost of her follow-up treatment. The remaining 100,000 is 1/10,000th of my sincerity. Paul, do you believe me? I will definitely make more money for you in the future." I nodded heavily. "Believe it, but isn't it too much for me to forgive you just like that?" He ruffled my hair and said, "What's wrong with me? Do you know what happened to me after you left?" "What has happened?" My pupils lit up. I never thought that there would be a day when David would be so worried about me. "My appetite has improved." Damn, my smile stopped abruptly. "Get lost." David pulled me into his arms again with a smile on his face. "There are many things I want to say, but I was kidding you, idiot. After you left, I thought life would go on. But I suddenly started to suffer from insomnia for whole nights, and after a long time I even started to hear auditory hallucinations. Not to mention academic matters, even basic living has become a problem. At the worst time, I even took too many sleeping pills at one time and was sent to the hospital. But I won't tell you this. I know you love me and have endured a lot of grievances. If this is punishment for my previous indifference to you, I am happy with it. As long as you come back to me." "Paul." I looked up, puzzled. "I miss you." Fuck you." I quickly covered his mouth. Fortunately, in this chilly winter, not many people came out for a walk. But the next second, my palms felt wet. Although one of David's hands was swollen and painful, it did not affect his flexible mouth. I got goosebumps all over my body, and in the end I could only fall powerlessly on him. The atmosphere was right, and we hurriedly got into a taxi. In the car, we held hands tightly and our hearts were beating like thunder. Get off the car and head straight to the destination, the big bed in David's house. It's a small one-bedroom apartment, but it's kept clean. In order not to hurt his injured hand, I even undressed him carefully. I also have to take the initiative to adjust my seat, which is more tiring than fighting with middle-aged women for discounted goods in the supermarket. But this thought changed 4 hours later. I couldn't tell whether it was sweat or tears on my face, and my whole body was shaking. David leaned close to my ear and said with a smile, "I thought before that if you cry, you can only cry in bed. Beast. If you're tired, just go to sleep first, and I'll move." Is this what a fucking person would say? But I was really tired, so I fell asleep as soon as I closed my eyes. When I woke up the next day, I felt like my whole body was repeatedly run over by a tractor, or like my legs were mosaics from squatting in a toilet for so long. Looking at the man sleeping soundly next to me, I felt so angry. I pinched him and said, "Are you so cruel?" David narrowed his eyes slightly and stared at me stupidly. Took him a long time to react, and he fell into my arms. I thought I had a wet dream all night, but it turned out to be real. "You bastard." When David was about to say something, his cell phone rang. I don't know what he said, but he got up and went to the bathroom. After hanging up the phone, David turned around and said, "Paul, I have to go to the hospital to see my sister. If you are too tired, just take a rest." "Younger sister?" I held my waist and said, "I'll go too. I can't sleep now, so it's a good opportunity to see the child." He was stunned for a moment and then smiled widely. "Okay, let's go together." 14. David was carrying a flower basket, a Barbie princess toy, and a thick picture book. That's what I found out on the road. David's sister Olivia loves drawing, and thinking that little girls all love princesses. She also bought a Barbie princess set, and I held a bouquet of flowers in my hand. 10 minutes later, they arrived at the Municipal People's Hospital. David rented a place close to the hospital so that he could take care of his sister. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt inexplicably nervous and my palms started sweating. As if he noticed something was wrong with me, David suddenly took out his free hand and held mine, intertwining our fingers. I looked at him in some surprise. He said gently, "She will like you." David went to see the doctor to find out about Olivia's recent condition. While I stayed in the ward and stared at Olivia. "You are Paul's brother, right?" Olivia came up to me, blinking. I scratched my head a little embarrassedly. Yes, but how did she know? "Hello, sister-in-law." Brother-in-law? Did you dump my brother half a year ago?" Olivia opened the book and said, "Every time I pretended to sleep, he would cry secretly after I fell asleep. My brother has a bad mouth, but his heart is good. Every time my brother talks to me, besides comforting me, he only talks about you. Alas, a man's heart is like a needle in the sea. Maybe he didn't realize that he liked you at the time and only regretted it when you left. This is damn love." "No, sister. How old are you? You are only 10 years old. Why do you talk so complicatedly?" "Brother-in-law, now that you're back with my brother, you should forgive him, right?" I nodded with a blush on my face and Olivia held my hand. "Also, thank you, sister-in-law, for saving my life." My heart softened, and I was glad that I decisively transferred 800,000 yuan to David. Paul? Suddenly a high-pitched voice sounded, interrupting me. Before I could react, the other person rushed in front of me. "Why did you return home?" "It's Emma." There was a hint of gritted teeth on her beautiful face. "How can you have the nerve to return to your country and come here?" I frowned. To be honest, I gave up because I thought David had never loved me. But now David loves me, which gives me the capital to fight on. I retorted, "You two didn't get together after I left." "After I left, he didn't follow his mentor's advice and go abroad. I have not committed any crime and I don't owe any debts. Why can't I come back?" Emma's eyes were as sharp as a knife. "Have you forgotten what I said in the hotel? You being with David will only lead him to irreparable consequences." "Oh!" A familiar voice suddenly sounded outside the door. David was holding a stack of medical records with a grim expression, and beside him was Olivia, who had just run to find him. He touched Olivia's head and said, "Listen to your brother and go to the nurse's place for a while. I'll pick you up later." Olivia nodded heavily and skipped to the familiar nurse's office. David retracted his smile, walked over and looked sinisterly at the pale-faced Emma. "Now tell me, what the hell did you say to Paul?" Under such strong pressure, Emma spoke tremblingly. Then some broke down and cried, "I have liked you for so long, and I have worked hard for you to become more beautiful and outstanding, just so that I can stand by your side one day. Why? He wanted to snatch you from me. You weren't even gay before." "Tisk." David clicked his tongue impatiently. "No one will wait until you become beautiful and outstanding before being with you. No matter what you look like, it doesn't matter to me, because I have never liked you." Emma said anxiously, "But that's because he showed up. I've known you longer than I have known Paul." "Emma, if you don't like it, you don't like it." David's eyes and eyebrows were filled with coldness. "Don't say anything irrelevant to Paul in the future. You know I won't show mercy just because of a girl." 15. Looking at Emma's shaky back, I couldn't help but sigh. David's mouth is sometimes more poisonous than mine. "But, I'm sorry, I changed your sexual orientation." I turned around feeling a little nervous. He snorted softly. "It's better to say that I have met true love." "Ah, what an idiot." 16. After we stuck together for a while, I realized that my mother was calling me all the time. The content is all about Jason. "Oh no!" I sat up from David's arms. Jason is going back to France." David gritted his teeth. "The adulterer with green eyes? Bah, this broken mouth. I covered his mouth and said, "He's just my roommate, and my mom asked me to see him off. I brought him here and abandoned him on the first day. It was my fault both morally and logically." He took my hand off his mouth and said, "Okay, take me with you." A jealous person. When we arrived at the airport, Jason was going through security. "Jason." He turned around and smiled gently. "Paul, why are you here?" I was out of breath and embarrassed to run over. "I'm sorry Paul, you never need to say sorry to me. I am so happy to be in your country." He glanced behind me and said, "You like him very much, right? After you cried that day." I was embarrassed, but still nodded heavily. He suddenly leaned close to my ear and said, "Paul, I wish you happiness." "Ah, thank you." Ouch. David's hand suddenly came around from behind, and he hugged me tightly in his arms, his eyes meeting Jason's with hostility. Jason shrugged, turned around with a triumphant smile on his face. Only David was jealous. "What did he just say in your ear?" "Huh? Nothing. I don't believe it." "He just raised his eyebrows at me in a very proud manner and got so close to you." "Really? He just wanted me to be happy." "Hee hee. You're so funny when you're jealous." Jason, who was already in the front, heard the playful sounds behind him and paused, but still shook his head. "Paul, I sincerely wish you happiness, but I also sincerely like you."